Yes, you can sit on the chair or the sofa, wherever. Especially you, 60 plus.
With all respect and love.
Yeah, of course.
We are not this bad.
You'll be there also one day.
You have to honor your T-shirt, Atman. We are Atman, so no problem.
Yeah.
Vajnanatimirandasya jnanam jana shalakaya chakshurmilitam jena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vande Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahadito Godadai Pushpavanta Chitra Sangotamo Nado He Krishna Karuna Sindhina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Radhi Vrindavanadi Shri Garunamrita Vahini Kripaya Nijya Padabja Dasyan Mahim Pradiyatam Bhaktya Vihinaya Aparadha Lakshaya Kriptaschakamaditarangamadhye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanam Vrinde Namaste Charanarabindam Vrinde Namaste Charanarabindam Shri Sachinandan Gaura Hari Ki Jai Shri Shri Gaura Nitai Shri Shri Jagannath Balad Subhadra Radha Gopinath Ji Ki Jai Shri Krishna Balaram Ki Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Pramananda. So, Pranam, Dandavat to all of you. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have our last gathering, at least my last gathering here in Belgium. Tomorrow continuing travels to UK. So as you know, during the last almost week, we have been sharing some thoughts in connection to some topics connected to a book I recently written called Radical Personalism. We have been talking about yesterday about guru and disciple, different dynamics in the relationship. We have been talking about vulnerability and the role of humanity in our practice, in our Bhakti project. We have been talking about non-dual thinking and how it plays out in our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, and many other topics. So today I felt maybe we can just open the door for any questions we may have or you may have on any topic. It doesn't have to be necessarily connected to what we have been talking these days. It can be in any direction, which I personally like a lot, since Ishtagosti or questions and answers is always a very, sensitive way of addressing whatever current concerns each one of us may be having in our journey. Whatever questions or doubts or comments or necessities to go deeper into some particular direction, so we can keep relevant whatever is relevant for us in our journey. We can address that as much as possible. And of course, every time we have a question, may be an answer, but the answer may create new questions. That's how it works. It's not just looking for definitive answers, not looking for closure, but disclosure, a permanent further unfolding. That's the nature of revelation. So that's it. Are there any questions, any topics? Dina Dayal?
Yeah, for sure have, but since I'm host, I will not start. Maybe someone else would like, but if not, I will definitely have one question, 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
So anyone?
I had phone from when we were discussing the sannyas lead of Mahaprabhu. We didn't manage to talk about that, but on the background of what we talked, worshipping Mahaprabhu as a grihasta, moving through the sannyas leader towards the goal of Nitya-Navadvipa. So, what is the mood of performing seva puja towards Gaura Nitai deities? Elaborate on that.
Okay, we can say something about that. Sri Sri Gaura Nityananda ki jai. So, as you know, or you may not know, but in our tradition also there is this possibility of eternal service in what we may call Nitya-Navadvipa, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has spoken about that. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur as well. Gopal Guru Goswami, also Dhyana Chandra Goswami. Those were the first ones, so to say. Which is in one sense, and another is, it may be difficult to think about that in the sense of, okay, we have also this eternal goal in Golok Vrindavan, and if I have an eternal goal in Navadvip, it means I will be bipolar for eternity. I will have two identities in two places. How that plays out, and it may not be possible even to give any satisfactory answer to our rational mind, because at the same time we have to remember Navadvip and Vrindavan, in one sense, they are not two different places. No, as Krishna and Mahaprabhu are the same person, Navadvip and Vrindavan is the same abode in different layers of experience and moods. And so there are ways to harmonize that. So as we were talking the other day in the celebration of Mahaprabhu's Sannyas Lila, we were mentioning how this prayer of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, very interesting prayer, where he's saying, when Nimai will leave his sannyas and return to us in Navadvip and join the Kirtan at Sriva Sangam, like we used to do in the past. No? So somehow Bhaktivinoda Thakur is praying for Mahaprabhu to leave his sannyas, no? Which in some level we will consider here like, oh, he fell down from his sannyas ashram and entered Grihastha ashram. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur is wishing, not of course for any type of falling down, it's just the nature of the lila, in which, as we explained the other day, the sannyas of Mahaprabhu is more conceived as a naimitika lila, or like a, what's this word? Like
Human life?
No. It's more like I want to look for a word, which will never come, of course. Naimitika. No, Nitya Lila is occasional, not like occasional Lila. Let's put it that way. Although, and that's a whole different conversation, but I've heard from some devotees who have their own arguments for Mahaprabhu being eternally as a sannyas in a chamber in Vaikuntha of Jagannath Puri. No, but that's another conversation, not for today, or more for maybe later. But mostly what we have received from our acharyas is this idea of, as Krishna in Golok Vrindavan is always in Golok Vrindavan, it's not going to Mathura, it's not going to Dwarka, although he's eternally existing in a form in Mathura and Dwarka, he's not leaving Vrindavan. In Nitya-Navadvipa, Mahaprabhu is not taking sannyas and living Navadvipa, but he remains eternally there as a grihastha with Vishnu Priya, Lakshmi Priya, Sachimata, and all the inner circle in Navadvipa. So the question is, okay, how we conceive, if in our puja to Gaura Nitai, how can we think in connection to their worship? Since, of course, Gaura Nityananda, the worship of Gaura Nitai, or the worship of any form of Bhagavan in the altar, has to do with how we gradually project to worship them in eternity, right? It's not just I worship them here in a certain way, which has nothing to do with what's going on forever. No? But ideally, the altar is kind of, as I like to say, the altar is kind of a portal into eternity. So ideally, gradually, we are to educate ourselves to approach the altar in a way that fits with the eternal mood we want to cultivate. And that's basically what sadhana. Sadhana, as Kriti Sadhya Bhavet Sadhya Bhavasa Sadhanavida Nitya Siddhasya Bhavasya Prakatyam Hridi Sadhyata. Rupa Goswami defines sadhana as engaging the senses in a way that invokes the descent of Nitya Siddha Bhav, or a particular mood in which Nitya, we aspire to serve them eternally. So yeah, how to relate to Gaura Nityananda, how to worship them. Of course, different devotees in different levels may worship them in different ways, and I know devotees who like to conceive of Gaura Nityananda more like, okay, the spreading of the Sankirtan movement on earth and participating in that, and of course that's totally valid. No, there's nothing against that. But there may be also this inspiration to, okay, and what's going on in Nitya-Navadvipa? No? Because in Nitya-Navadvipa they are not preaching. no? Because there's nobody to preach in the spiritual world, right? So what's going on there, right? No? Like to understand, of course, preaching is glorious in itself, but it's also interesting to understand that the eternal dynamics imply some other things happening. And if we preach in a proper way, naturally that outreach will nourish our inreach. No, I mean, in order to do outreach, first there has to be some inreach. I can only do outreach of what I have enriched, so to say, or reached in. only that I can share with others, what I've realized. And by sharing that in that way, that will in turn nourish again my own internal realization. And that will take to a more deeper sharing, and so on and so forth. So something that may help, of course, there are these meditations that are shared by some acharyas, as I say, like Dhyana Chandra Goswami, Bhakti, Gopal Guru Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when they, for example, describe the Ashtakaliya Lila of Mahaprabhu in Nitya-Navadvipa. No? And of course, Nityananda is there on a daily basis. He's accompanying them. So puja many times lends itself a lot for that, because sometimes you are worshipping the deity in some prescribed timings of the day. So you can connect those timings with whatever is going on at that time in eternity. There is a valid place for that. That's not necessarily, how to say, cheap imitationism or sahaja. If it's done from a place of genuine meditation and responsible service, it can be very inspiring, right? Like, I don't know, Prabhupada is sharing the Krishna book, and then we have a revelation of course, it's revealing what's going on in Gokul and Vrindavan on earth, but basically that somehow parallels what's going on in the spiritual world. So very quickly we know what's going on there. And that's not necessarily sahaja, but it's how we approach that, with which realism, and so on. So I will basically somehow recommend that. No, for example, in Mangalarti it is described how Mahaprabhu wakes up and Nityananda comes. There are the different acharyas have described different doors from the room of Mahaprabhu, and depending the paribar from the devotee, they will align with, okay, Nityananda paribar or this or that, and okay, that corresponds with the western window or the northern window. So Nityananda Prabhu comes from the northern window with all the Dwadasa Gopals who appear in Gaur Lila as different associates, and they start like to long for Mahaprabhu to wake up, and Sachimata comes, and so there is a whole beautiful meditation about how Nitai is basically the shadow of Mahaprabhu in one sense, in the eternal Nitya-Navadvipa, accompanying him in the morning. Then when he's preparing for the morning, they go to hear Bhagavatam from Gadadhar Pandit. So Nitai is also there accompanying him. And after that, Gadadhar is making the offering, and then comes the moment for prasad. And of course, prasad is always akanta. No? Akanta in Bengali means up to the neck. No? That's very funny. I remember one thing. I was once in Jagannath Puri visiting a sannyasi, elder sannyasi friend of mine, Bhakti Parvat Muni Maharaj, and he was serving me Jagannath Prasad. No? So that's a very special occasion. Not always you can receive the Mahaprasad from Jagannath, being in Jagannath Puri. So he was serving, and I was trying to make as much space as I could to receive the mercy. But of course, there is a point that there's no more space, right? So he was coming again with another spoonful of whatever in full momentum. And I'm like, no, Maharaji, I say akanta up to the neck, no, which is kind of an expression that comes in Chaitanya Charitamrita usually, like I'm filled up to. And he looks at me, like looks at my mouth. And of course, if you know him, it's even more charming because he's a very beautiful character, transcendental character. And he was like, no, Maharaj. You know what's akanta? Akanta means that you put your finger in your mouth and you're able to touch the food. And I can see that that's not still there. So then, boom, and then post another. So that's akanta. So that's not an excuse when you go to India. If you say a kanta, they will look, they will inspect themselves. And better you don't try a kanta because that can be a little dangerous. Some choking can be happening there. So anyhow, but every time Mahaprabhu is serving prasad, that's a kanta, that's a feast, and the other day I was talking with a Christian friend of mine, and he will tell me like how in Christianity they have this analogy of to speak about like the abundance of grace and divine love as a banquet. Banquet, you say in English, like a feast. No, Christ will speak in those terms. Not like the abundance of grace will be like an endless feast. And I was thinking, making our own parallel with the notion of prasad, which means can refer to food, but means grace. No? And how abundantly grace is served by Mahaprabhu Akanta, again, up to the neck and more. No? So different traditions having these similar ways of expressing, no? A feast of grace, a banquet of mercy, up to the neck, so to say. So in this way, of course, Mahaprabhu will honor Prasad with Nitai, Advaita, Gadadhar. There will be lots of beautiful leelas in between, all of them quarreling with one another, especially Nityananda and Advaita have a very interesting rasa between them. And there's always some interesting bit of rasa and divine conflict going on, and challenges and fights and so on. Nityananda is Avadut, so there's always room for surprise with him there. And then eventually it is said that they go in midday to roam into the forest of Navadvip, and Mahaprabhu becomes very much immersed in Krishna Lila. Of course, in every part of the day, Mahaprabhu is getting immersed by the kirtan of Sarup Damodar in a particular corresponding Lila happening in Vrindavan at that moment, and all the devotees, when he enters into his particular mood, each one of them enter into their particular identity in Vrindavan. And at midday, he recalls the Leelas in Vrindavan of Krishna going with the cowherd boys and the cows in the forest. So Mahaprabhu enters into, not so much into Radha Bhav at that moment, but into Krishna Bhav. No, it's in Mahaprabhu is a complex personality. Sometimes he may be in Baraha Bhav, Nrsimha Bhav, at least on earth. But midday pastimes, he's entering into Krishna Bhav. So he sees some cowherd boys, real cowherd boys in Nitya-Navadvipa, and that's Udipana. That stimulates his own bhav and starts to relate to everyone in Sakya Bhav, so to say. Of course, Nityananda being Balaram is there with him to support that role, so to say. And in that way, they will roam in the afternoon and return back to Nitya-Navadvipa intoxicated in that particular mood. And of course, then comes the bathing, and Sachimata is wanting Nimai to prepare to do puja to Vishnu in the altar, no, to the home deity. So everyone is preparing to join in Sankirtan with Mahaprabhu, and then have some snack after that. Of course, I'm just keeping very general overview, of course, and then comes the whole preparation for the night kirtan at Sriva Sangam. No? So everyone is kind of like anticipating what's coming and preparing everything, and all Navadvip bus are lightening the path. And again, Nitai is always next to Mahaprabhu. No? It's kind of the second, like Balaram is like the immediate expansion of Krishna. It's like a way of saying it's like a second Krishna, basically. No? The only difference sometimes, Bhatmana Veda Prakash, sometimes you say the only difference between Balaram and Krishna is the color. Now, of course, color also indicates mood. But there's so much, we cannot just make it, again, as we were talking the other day, between Ved and Ved. No? How much you can make Krishna and Balaram different. No? So the same applies to Nitai, being him assisting in every possible service. So then again, they go together, stumbling up on the way. All the Navadvip buses have lightened the path with candles and with torches, because it's already night and they're heading towards Sriva Sangam for the all-night kirtan. And eventually, of course, comes the description of what's going on in Sriva Sangam, which is interestingly, because it's a parallel of the Rasa Lila in Vrindavan. But given that Gaur Lila has a different mood, someone like Nitai can be there, while Balaram in Krishna Lila won't enter the Rasa Lila, because that will spoil the party, so to say. No, here comes the elder brother. No? That's what it says generally. Balaram won't be in the same altar with Radha and Krishna, because Radha will feel very shy if her lover's elder brother comes into the scene. So it will be kind of rasa abhas to mix all them together. So, but Balaram knows. No, it's not that Balaram doesn't know about the extramarital affairs between Radha and Krishna, but he's not participating, of course, directly in facilitating that, but somehow he's participating in not reporting that back to Yashoda. No? Because remember, Yashoda is telling Balaram, you are the elder brother, so you report any mischievous thing that Krishna does. But when the Rasa Lila comes, of course, it's not a mischief, but somehow it's an extramarital affair. In the codes of the Lila, there is something illicit going on. But Balaram doesn't say anything. Every midday when Krishna is telling, I don't know, he's with the Gopas and he's planning to meet Radha and the Gopis in Radha Kunda, he always comes with a new excuse. Oh, there is an astrologer in town and we will meet him. So I'll go with a few of my friends, only the Priyanarma and Sakas. Please stay with Balaram. So Balaram, okay, I take care of that. But he knows what's going on. He knows there's no astrologer at all. So again, from the distance, Balaram is somehow assisting Krishna in his romantic lila, but in the Gaur lila, Balaram as Nityananda has the chance of directly assisting Krishna as Mahaprabhu in the tasting of Radha Bhav, which is the main thing going on even in Nitya-Navadvipa. So in that sense, the Gaur lila is offering that unique opportunity even for Balaram himself as Nityananda to be there. Close to him, connecting and feeling openly. So yeah, these are some thoughts. Of course, many more things we can say, but I also want to give space for other questions, but a few reflections of how can we meditate about Gaur Nityananda in their service and relationship in Nitya-Navadvipa in eternity. I can share you some other material eventually, because actually a few years ago, after writing my first book, I was not planning to write that second book. That came by force of circumstance, unplanned. But I was planning to write the second book on Mahaprabhu and Gaur Lila and like the depths of Gaur Lila, and eventually ended up being, this will be like a 3-4 book project, because talk about Gaur Lila, Nitya-Navadvipa, maybe Gadadhar Pandit, a separate book. So maybe that will come hopefully at one point. It's still there because I have like 300 pages of notes that I accumulated all those years. So, and one part was to go through each one of these 8 periods and highlighting what's going on there. Yeah.
Just a sub question to this, maybe. Does Nityananda Prabhu ever relates to Mahaprabhu as Ananga manjari?
That's a long conversation.
Like any other.
And it's okay. I'm not complaining about the question. I'm just saying that's a long conversation, and I may not be able to fully address it now. But I will say that there are differences of opinion in our tradition. As usual, no problem. Here we are still, hopefully, not killing each other. Coexisting with differences of opinion. That's an interesting challenge, but important one. Because sometimes there some Vaishnavas make like a very, how to say, radical like correlation between Nityananda and Ananga manjari. Like it is say sometimes, okay, Nityananda is Balaram is serving Krishna in Santa, Dasya, Sakya, and Vatsalya directly. In Shanta as expanding himself as the Dham, in Dasya serving Krishna, Sakya as friends, Vatsalya as an elder brother. So the question is, he's serving Krishna in all departments. What about Madhurya Rasa? Sometimes the answer is Ananga manjari. The answer that comes from some devotees. Balaram takes that form and he associates directly with Krishna, because Ananga manjari, she's actually not a manjari. No? She has the name Ananga manjari, but she has direct relationship with Krishna, which is not what happens with manjaris. But her name is Ananga manjari. No? So, but actually, the idea that somehow Balaram is non-different from Ananga Manjari come from some texts which are not considered that, if you want to use the word bona fide, you can use it, authoritative by some Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So like texts like Ananga Manjari Samputika. So there are differences of opinion. Some, especially Vaishnavas coming from the lineage of Nityananda Prabhu, will emphasize that book a lot, and in that connection, Ananga Manjari being Nityananda. But in other groups, the emphasis will be, like, for example, what I shared, that how Balaram serves in Madhurya Rasa by knowing that everything's going on, and when Krishna is doing all that, he takes care of the rest of the friends, etc. And Ananga Manjari sometimes is more described like a like a Shakti expansion. There are different ways that it is described. No? In some cases, there may be a more direct correlation, like Nityananda, Balaram as Ananga Manjari stays in Madhurya Rasa, and in other cases, they will say, no, Ananga Manjari is an expansion, a separate personality, and it's not Balaram himself. That's considered Rasa Bas, and so on and so forth. And of course, some devotees kill each other, be online discussing about that, and there we have all these social media inquisitions and crusades. We won't go there now. So yeah, there are differences of opinion. There are a series of articles interesting in that connection. I may share them eventually if you want. Like I may share something more with you eventually, because it's a big conversation. There are many details, but that will be the general situation, and acknowledging that there is a difference of opinion, and each one have their own points, and they may never agree about one single conclusion. And for me in itself, that's a more interesting conversation. Like, okay, it seems we are not reaching the same conclusion ever. So can we coexist with that, or how do we feel about it? That's my first book is a lot about that, basically. Right? Yeah. Like I like to say sometimes, even, of course, we are talking about the same sampradaya, but even, I don't know, if I tell you, okay, for me, Narayan, of course, I'm not saying that. Don't cut this clip and make something separate, please. Narayan is the source of Krishna. Maybe some of you will say, Maharaj, what are you talking about? That's wrong. We Gaudiya Vaishnavas say the opposite, the other way around. Okay, but Sri Vaishnavas will say that. And they, by saying that, by thinking that, by practicing with that conception, they attain the spiritual world. So was that wrong? Because if it's wrong, how can you, with a wrong conception, wrong sambandha, wrong avideya, wrong prayojan, how can you attain Vaikuntha? So it's not wrong, right? So you have to accommodate that. No? So just another example, of course, related to another sampradaya, but with things that usually we may think that's wrong, but if there is a place for that in eternity. I can even give, well, that may be too much. Yesterday we were talking about that, and maybe these days as well here. Even the attainment of Brahman, impersonal Brahman. It's not our goal, it's not our cup of tea, but that is described in the scriptures as a possible attainment in eternity. So how much we can, of course, our acharyas, some of them have spoken very strongly about that, but especially I would say about that particular line which says only this is real and everything else is an illusion. But there are also practitioners who, and I know many, who say, I want to merge into Brahman, but you can serve Bhagavan eternally, and that's totally fine. It's possible. It's not Maya. But they are drawn toward Brahman. Some particular samskars are there. And the scripture validate that. So you follow my point, and there's a place for that in eternity. So we have to become accustomed to coexist with things that may not be our cup of tea, but in their own way are valid. It's a good test for our own faith, right? How much I have my choice, I have my affinity, and whatever is not that, how much I feel unsettled and in need of defeating and conquering and colonizing, or how I can like also respect that, even celebrate that if that's bona fide, genuine, and without that disturbing my own path. No, that's the ideal point of coexisting with differences, which exist in eternity. Again, you go to Golok Vrindavan, and as I like to say, at night comes and Jashoda wants that Krishna has a very sound sleep, right? She always will think she has never eaten enough, she has to sleep more. No, that's Vatsalya Bhav. No, you're always too thin, you're too skinny, eat more, lala. And Jashoda will again, and Krishna will say Akanta. Jashoda will bring the argument. No, I can touch still more. And regarding sleep, the same. Krishna must be tired. Go to sleep, please. That's what she wants. Let Krishna sleep a lot, profoundly. But that's not what Radha and the gopis want. They have an eternal difference of opinion. Radha and the gopis are waiting for him for Rasa Leela. But Radha loves Yashoda, Yashoda loves Radha. There are so many sections in Shastra speaking about how each other, every time they see, start to show tears of love for each other. But they have the difference of opinion eternally. So there's place for that. That's my point. If we do not give place for that here, probably we won't go there, or there will be a place for that. So better we start to exercise so we can accommodate what needs to be accommodated. I'm not saying anything and everything is allowed, but there's place for harmonizing, coexisting with differences. I went in another direction, but it's all related somehow. So I hope that nothing else. Something else?
2 days ago, you were speaking about non-duality, and I think this is now maybe a nice time to ask this question. I was thinking about it. I mean, in your lecture, you were emphasizing non-duality, and I understand why and how much it is important to see like the interconnectedness of everything that exists. It's just that through the lecture, I was like, okay, so why do we need the difference, the duality, you know? And I started thinking how actually duality is very much needed because of love, right? Because there is no exchange if there is no difference. And then how, in the end, how we actually need both.
Yes.
The union and separation, the duality and non-duality. Right? And, or, I mean, maybe we could go as far as saying impersonalism and personalism, you know, that there are actually the both sides of what we need to have love, to have the possibility of love. I don't know, maybe you can comment on that. Yeah.
I agree. To begin with, I agree with what you said. Of course, I never, while speaking the other day on non-duality, I tried to be hopefully careful enough to make it clear that I'm not just proposing a radical non-dualism, which will be Advaita Vedanta, and that's not our tradition. But also when we miss non-duality altogether, that's in itself a problem, because we don't have a unified foundation, right? It's just duality, which many modern philosophers are metaphysical dualists. Like there's no common ground, common foundation. Everything is just like chaotic atoms bumping in one another, but there's no inherent purpose and meaning and order, nothing. So that's not our idea to reach that point. So yeah, my main intention was, let's emphasize non-duality as much as we need. So that foundation allows for interaction, relationship, loving. As I make that point the other day, actually, if we can relate with one another in the deepest possible way, is because there is a non-dual foundation. In other words, because we already interconnected with something so deep in common, that allows for us to connect with each other based on that thing we have in common. Because if we have nothing in common ontologically, and I try to relate to you, that will be chaos forever. So the fact that we can relate and there's the hope to relate through love and not through, is because there is something that we share in common, a common source, a common center. So non-duality establishes that foundation. Ideally for us, we will say for it to be expressed as loving interaction, diversity.
You could also argue that actually the relation is possible because of separation as well. Because there would be no relation if the two entities are not separate.
Exactly.
So both,
if I am you, how can I relate with quote unquote you?
No, so both non-duality and duality are actually
exactly.
important
Both fulfill the purpose of loving interaction, and that's why again our philosophy is Bheda Abheda. No, difference, non-difference.
And it's achintya.
One and different, and it's achintya. But achintya, well, that's a whole conversation. Achintya. Achintya is a beautiful word, but we many times also can be very easily tempted to press the achintya button when we sometimes someone is asking you something that you don't know what to say. Achintya, no, and that can be dangerous because it's like playing the mystery card. No, and as a friend of mine say, when you play when you bring too quickly the mystery card, you spoil the deck, right? No, like achintya. Maharaj, oh, Prabhu, why this happened? Oh, achintya. But I don't understand. Oh, achintya. No, so everything is thrown to the mystery realm. No, and that's so achintya doesn't mean impossible to understand. Srila Jiva Goswami comments in the Paramatma Sandarbha, in his commentary to the Paramatma Sandarbha, Sarva Sambhatini, he says Shastraika Gunatvam. Achintya means that those things that remains unconceivable or unintelligible unless and until we refer to Shastra. In other words, there are certain things you won't able to understand at all until and unless you go to revelation, and then they are no longer achintya. That's a way of putting it also. No? I want to clarify that. Of course, achintya also means like one way that who translated that? The other way of translating achintya Veda tattva is like paradoxical bipolarity, no, of union, separation, unity, and diversity, but achintya like paradoxical. And the word paradox in itself indicates like a way of thinking above the normal. It doesn't mean you don't understand it, because sometimes achintya is again invoked like you cannot understand it. So it kind of cancels critical thinking or cancels the possibility of understanding. It's just achintya, a wall, achintya. But no, it means it can be understood, but not in the usual way we understand things, right?
I think it can be understood until it's revealed, if it needs to be revealed. That's what we mean.
Yeah. And again, it's also paradoxical in the sense Veda means different and non-different. No? So if I tell you this is different but non-different, and in the usual way of thinking, it says no, that's contradictory. It has to be different or non-different. So in order to understand the simultaneous coexistence of that, we need to think in a different way that allows difference and non-difference to be together. No? And again, our mind may not be trained in that. So revelation, in one sense, is Shastra, but of course, then you have to have a realization of what the Shastra says for it to be real revelation.
You have to come to a broader picture.
Yeah. Because, in dualistic thinking, it's black or white. No? Like if I tell you now, oh, the sun is entering the room, you say, no, Maharaj, the sun is over there, I'm saying, yeah, but in the form of its rays, it's here. So it entered and it did not enter at the same time. Oh, yeah. Yes. It's paradoxical. It's another way of understanding. No? So when we approach the absolute, we have to be trained in paradoxical thinking because almost everything possesses this attribute. I remember there's one article that I liked a lot written by Sri Vatsa Goswami from the Radha Raman tradition in a book that Satyaraj published on Vaishnavism, and it's on Achintya Veda. And he makes an interesting point, and I quote that on Radical Personalism, to how Achinte Vedabhed is kind of a pattern in reality. Like not only speaking about God and his energies, but how everything has this quality of one and different. And the importance of developing this like flexible mindset to accommodate things are not only one, things are not only different. There are a little bit of both, and be more comfortable navigating those in between waters, so to say, right? But yeah, I agree with what you mentioned, Ramhari, and also integrating the impersonal aspect, because it's not that impersonal is necessarily bad. It's part of the equation. Again, the absolute has an impersonal side, a personal, but an impersonal one, and it's there and it's existing and it's forever, and, and some people love it. So it's part of reality, no? Yeah.
Add something to what
Please.
Ramhari said in terms of this dual thinking. So when this dual thinking is so kind of conditioning us, can we say it's just because we have this basic conditioning of Vanga, of I hate it, I want it? The duality-
Basic condition of what?
Yeah, of hate and attachment.
Mm.
So if you just
Raga Dvesh.
yeah, Raga and Dvesh. So when we look, whatever, from that perspective, and what came to my mind is that like beauty is in the eye of a beholder. So this Vanga is in me. So through that filter of what I want or what I don't want, I will interact and I will see others as separate from me, as a threat, as what you said, the duality brings strife and struggle and war and suffering. So it's just feeding on.
Yeah, I will say that first comes the duality, and then comes all this like hatred and attachment, and not the other way around. Now, generally, how the scripture portrays it, like first, if you want to put an order, avidya, or like ignorance of what is reality, basically. Not only who are you, but what is everything. You don't. So from avidya, from missing the target, comes, you start to see everything dualistically, like separated, not integrated. So then comes naturally like, okay, if I see you separated from me, I don't see you as my sister, so I can hate you because you are from that side of the team or whatever. But if I start with a non-dual foundation, when I understand everything is part of the same thing, then that type of dualism doesn't come. No, so the Bhagavatam speaks a lot now that I'm studying it another. This time I'm paying attention how many times this term like pritak bhava. Pritak bhava means like separatistic. Pritak means like separatism. And bhava means like mood or state of consciousness. Or bina, pritak bina bhav, like separateness. And there are many verses Bhagavatam is saying how that is the source of all problems, like seeing separate, a separatistic way. Of course, when saying this, I'm not totally against about dualistic thinking. In which sense? Like, I don't know, if someone is a baby, 2, 3, 4 years, they start to think in terms. They need to start thinking in terms of good, bad. I cannot teach a 3-year-old. Okay, you have to be non-dual and realize the unity, underlying unity of the whole of reality. First is black and white, good or bad. There is an initial framework and perimeter that you need to have to deal with reality, but eventually we need to outgrow that pattern and be able to see the bigger picture.
But is it also, I was always fascinated after next verse after Tadvidiparinipatana. And the very next verse is when Krishna says, and then you will see that all living beings are mine. So that's immediately the first result of serving spiritual master and getting knowledge from spiritual master is to be able to see this non-dual. Everything is in Krishna, and that all the living entities are Krishnas.
Yeah.
That's obviously very important also in the Gita.
Yeah, and everywhere. The other day I was reading again the Sri Upanishad, which I like a lot. There are so many interesting points in that book And I don't know, I'm now sharing with mantra 6, for example. He who systematically sees everything in relationship to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. Again, he doesn't fall into this. But first comes the non-dual appreciation. Oh, everything is in Krishna, Krishna is in everything. So that protects me from this Pandava-Kuru dichotomy, which is basically what the Gita is showing. Besides the historical facts in Kurukshetra, the symbolic content there is Pandava-Kuru, no? Friends and enemies, no? Us and them, as we said the other day. No? And the Gita, every chapter is about yoga, reunion, reconnection, instead of us and them, us and them, us and them, us. No, yoga, yoga, yoga. Dina Dayal, you had 4 questions before we started, but this time you may have 108 minimum. So at least one.
My questions are not so much into the rasa and
nobody's asking.
Underground.
Please.
We like them.
Yeah, who can relate to that? Okay, my part. Well, I have few of them. One of them is very practical, pragmatical. It's hunting me for last 15, 20 years.
Not putting pressure on me in the answer.
It's
going to be a long discussion.
It's kind of what I'm realizing in my spiritual practice, in my engagement in sadhana bhakti, engaging my senses, and serving Krishna, Vaishnavas. It looks like, at least in my case, but I'm sure others also kind of to degree reveal that as more I endeavor or putting kind of emphasis, for instance, Nityananda Maharaj would come here, let us do the holy name, japa retreat, and I would be quite disappointed with the outcome. As more we are setting up Sankalpa, Ki Jai Sukumari, my god sister, we are god brothers, yes, indeed. And then it looks like that's my pattern. And then I see what's bothering me in that whole constellation is not.
But why the frustration? Can you clarify why you feel?
I would love to experience some breakthrough, some more direct, more personal revelation or insight in Krishna personality. I can understand I'm this and I'm that. I'm coming from a Christian background, so for me it's not difficult to attribute anything to myself. But what I realize, and that's the tough part, as more I endeavor, kind of at the end, outcome is kind of pretty much the same, which is disappointing in one sense. Of course, I'm committed to the practice. I will continue. I will shake myself, and new day is going to come. And that's the way how it goes. Then when you take a broader perspective, you can see also that others are pretty much facing the same issues. Maybe we are not open enough about that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of my kind of inner struggle. I can see I can get shelter and opening from some impersonalistic approach of Krishna, some good feelings, some peace, happy, joyfulness, gratitude, and so on. But that personal Krishna, which should be coming through the holy name, at least that's something what we hear, I don't see, I don't feel, I don't experience, and even on top of it, I don't see it's not happening to others who are for sure much more serious than I am. And that's kind of doing something and it's running away from you. It's not there. It's just that's my kind of modus operandi, which I see that. I don't know to which extent any one of you relate to that.
We have no idea what you are talking about.
Thank you. And then others are going to reveal their self to me, and I was having the same thing as I do. Come on. So it's kind of, and that's and I'm starting with Srila Satchidananda Swami, who I admire a lot, and he's kind of giving us always that practice, and it's always for me kind of like a fly entering the electricity. Okay, so that's pretty much one angle. How do I present my challenging situation? And if there is anyone, starting with you, Maharaj, able to say something about it, I would be more than grateful.
Okay, public confession now. We have opened the doors now. So raise your hand who can connect with. So you are not alone. Jai. Amen.
Catholic background is there.
So, yeah, thanks for bringing the question. I will say, of course, we can say a few things. The first thing is the fact that you bring the question is part of the solution. I'm not saying that's all, but the fact that you dare to talk about it and voice it, it starts to be a solution, in the sense that many times we don't talk about it and we end up convincing ourselves it's only me having this problem. So you, on top of the problem you may have, you isolate yourself, and guilt may come, shame may come, and you don't want anyone to know about your struggles, because what they will think about me if they get to know. But everyone is going through the same thing on some level, probably. So the moment someone opens, gives permission, he gives oneself permission to speak. Oh, I also am going through that. Oh, I'm all, and everyone realizes, okay, we are all in this together. So in itself, that creates support, that creates empathy, connection. I'm not saying the whole problem is solved, but you need that first foundation of empathy and connection to address the issue without shame, without guilt, with openness, with sincerity. And many times that's not there. Not because it's forbidden by anyone, but just because sometimes, unfortunately, it has not become the norm. No, like, let's talk openly about anything. It's like, oh, some people may get nervous. Like, what will happen now? But that should be the norm in sadhu sangha, at least in certain circles of trust. I'm not saying just in Sunday feast force everyone to reveal their minds. I'm not saying that, but we should be having at least some circle of trust, so to say, that we can really pour our hearts out and be naked as we are and be totally accepted and loved and embraced, not judged, not labeled, not burned at the stake. And we don't have that fear, we don't have that calculation. So the fact that we can just express those concerns or those feelings or lack of feelings openly, it's huge advancement. So I want to make that clear, because sometimes when we don't make this clear, we skip that part and we try to find solutions to whatever problem, this or anyone, but having skipped that part first and neglecting that part without understanding first we need to express whatever we need to express in an open way and be supported. If we forget that part and we want solutions without doing that homework, we are just perpetrating a further problem. So that's an important point. But I won't stop my answer there. I will say something more. He's looking at me like, don't finish there, Maharaj. Okay, yeah, that's correct, but that's not the point. Come on, move forward. I'm going. But I think it's important to make that point. Do you have space there? If not, okay. So, okay, if someone at one point needs more space, you can come here or there. You prefer?
I like more like this. Sorry.
Are you with us or?
It's
not
more
with us?
comfortable for me like this, So I'm more accustomed. She said you beat me.
So regarding chanting in particular, it seems to be the main point of the question. Like, okay, we are chanting through the years, and we may feel we are not doing progress in the chanting. And as you say, sometimes we go to some workshop or retreat and we go with this hope and expectation, okay, there will be transformation here. After this, it will be different. And sometimes it's not. So we may get double frustrated because we're in a worse position than before the retreat, it seems. So what to do? Because the more retreats I'm going, the worse I will be, And that's not the idea. That's not the intention of the retreat. That's not the intention of the holy name, nothing like that. So, of course, I'm answering in general because each case is particular, but I think it's important that we ask ourselves how I'm addressing my chanting, because it's not just magical thinking. It's not that just by chanting it will happen. Yes, by chanting it will happen, but what's chanting? and what's getting in the way of my chanting. Because from what I can hear, the chanting is everything, and everything is there, and half a syllable is enough. And I'm like, half a syllable is enough. I'm chanting for the last 4 decades.
And the holy name is all powerful and all merciful.
Yes,
Faithful.
yes. And we don't, and on top of that, we have like, and one offense to the holy name is to believe that those statements are exaggerations. So don't be an operatic, be careful, huh? And we can get the whole guilt trip with that. That's a separate chapter. So yeah, whole name is powerful, all powerful, all merciful. So the question is, and not with guilt, hopefully not with toxic shame, but where am I in all this? No, like we were talking the other day. Sometimes we might feel, where are you, Krishna? Where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? I don't feel Krishna. But Krishna's everywhere. In one sense, there is not a place he's not. So the question is not so much where are you, Krishna, is where am I? Krishna, there's not a place Krishna is not. So if I don't perceive him, instead of asking where are you, like demanding why you're hiding, it's like, where am I? Probably I'm hiding. Unconsciously, I'm hiding, I'm running, I'm whatever. So for me, all these how questions, how to improve the chanting, how to this, how to that, the first question in reply to that question is, what is getting in the way of my experience? If I know that the name can give all this, and that's not happening, what's getting in the way? And I invited to do an inner inventory, like how I'm chanting, which is my conception of the chanting, what is my conception of Krishna, and which is, and so on and so forth. No, so it takes time for introspection. It's just I will sit again and I will chant again and I will endeavor more, but I may endeavor with the wrong conception. So if I'm endeavoring with the wrong conception, I'm perpetrating something toxic sometimes. Like an example, I'm not saying it's your case. I don't know, probably, but I don't think so, but probably in some cases, in some devotees chant with the idea that Krishna doesn't love me until I am perfect. So I have to endeavor to be perfect. So Krishna likes me. So by doing that, I'm perpetrating a very distorted idea of who Krishna is. And no wonder that chanting will never bring you to tears and ecstasy and deep feelings of communion with God, because you are chanting with the wrong sambandha. No, chanting is avideya, it's a practice. But before avideya comes sambandha. Sambandha is the knowledge of relational. What's my relationship with Krishna? What's his relationship with me? Some devotees still may have some unresolved daddy issues, and they project that to God. So daddy was easily grumpy and got angry very easily. Well, Krishna may get angry with me at any, so I have to chant to keep him appeased, right? Something like that. That's the purpose of my chanting, so Krishna doesn't get angry with me. I've seen that sometimes. I've heard devotees tell me, crying, and I was like terrified. Like, Maharaj, I don't know, one Vaishnavi was pregnant, so makes sense that she may have an extra energy to be invested in that project. And because of that, she was not able to finish her 16 rounds, and she was terrified that she was losing her human form of life, and that Krishna will deprive her of that because of not being able to finish the daily quota. And she was crying. So I was like, that's not Krishna. Do you think Krishna is that cruel? And we get sometimes these mixed messages, because next we say, Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, no? Oh, ocean of mercy. But if I miss this round, no, sorry, you're born as a frog next lifetime. And it's like, that's absolutely disjointed. No? We are allowing two totally contradictory messages, and we put them together, and that's Krishna. So many times that's happening. So that's our sambandha, and on that foundation we practice. with a disjointed idea of God. And we approach that idea with a disjointed relationship. And no wonder it's not happening, it's not working, because you are not addressing the real person who is that name. So many times we may need to, instead of I have to endeavor more, instead in the form of I have to concentrate more on the sound only, maybe I need first to unlearn a lot. Because sometimes we don't take time to question, may I need to unlearn something? And it's just like, let's keep learning, like cumulative, let's keep learning new. But if there are some misconceptions, whatever you're learning is on the basis of that misconception. So somehow you're amplifying the misconception without bad intention. But it's all that gets in the way of your practice. Bhaktivinoda Thakur will say that one of the main anarthas is Tattva Brahma, to be in illusion regarding Tattva. Tattva means, Tattva means reality. So Tattva Brahma is to be in illusion about what is what. Who is Krishna? Who are you? What's your relationship? That's an anartha. So sometimes we think anartha is lust, greed, envy, and of course it's that also, but misconceptions are also anarthas. So sometimes we need to maybe to take time. If I really find, I'm not making progress, my chanting is going anywhere, it's mechanical, I'm not feeling anything new. Okay, sit down, make a list. What's chanting for you? Who are you addressing? Are you addressing anyone? Or you forget that it's a conversation you are having, the chanting. Teresa of Avila, this Christian mystic, she will say, I think we quoted that in Italy, not here. One of the main problems in prayer is that we pray as if God does not exist. Teresa of Avila, she says, one of the main problems in prayer is that we pray as if God does not exist. Like during prayer, we forget that God exists. It's just us endeavoring again. It's all about me. It's all on top of my shoulders, all the responsibilities, my effort, and there's nobody else. So that's terrible.
I have a joke on that.
Please, because they're too serious now. So
a nun was looking for a parking place, and she was driving, and there was no parking place, and she was started to pray, "Please, God, just give me one parking place." And then as she turned in the next block, she saw a parking place, and she said, "Okay, no need, I got it."
That's a raw material.
That's just what you were saying.
Yeah, thank you.
I wouldn't like to sound like an atheist in the real sense of meaning, but you are now direction you are going, which is it comes down that holy name is going to reveal it or going to show you the way. But as someone is endeavoring every day, at least through japa, and there's so many thousands of devotees who are trying their best. My question is, in a humble mood, without too challenging it, why wouldn't then it become revealed to some? Because when I speak with Vaishnavas or when I get insights in their chanting and their practice, pretty much is coming to the same point, They try, but if holy name is there, why wouldn't, even if you are not having good practice, if you are missing this and that, but it's going to be revealed to you how to make it forward. Mm-hmm. It's kind of very rude and very disgraceful if it's always waiting for the practitioner to tweak in and find the attitude, find this and find. Come on, if someone would approach me and beg, give me, okay, you are not maybe even deserving that, I will give you. So I don't get me wrong, neither you, Vaishnava, in a sense, but
we need Purva Paksha.
That's core of that, and we can now kind of try to, not putting you on spot, Maharaj, just kind of see and that's my life practice from that. So I kind of have certain practical experiencing that, and I appreciate your answer. But you see which direction I'm coming from.
I can speak for, of course, for me and for other devotees I've talked to, and just to not to go into any details of any type of, how to say, intimate revelations or realizations, but there is people who are having experiences with chanting the name. So let's just make that clear, because maybe we haven't found them. That's another thing, and it's okay, but that doesn't mean that there are none. No, they are. At least I speak for my own experience, so that gives hope. It's possible. A few things. One thing, again, I go back to what I'm saying. Why? Because you use the word, okay, there was are endeavoring, and I appreciate, but sometimes it's not about endeavoring, it's about endeavoring intelligently, which means with the right conception. If we don't have the right conception, we may endeavor, and there's still an obstacle. And we may be invited. Krishna, it's not that Krishna is indifferent to that, but how open we are to revisit our own practice. That's my point. Because sometimes we are not given a chance to unlearning. No? In some cases, I'm not saying every devotee is in that situation, but sometimes we are not considering the possibility that I need to unlearn something. So I'm not hearing that, because I'm close to that possibility. Krishna is inviting me, unlearn, but that's out of my possibility. So I'm not hearing that. And maybe that's what he's inviting me. Not like, see how you are doing things, and if there is something that you are doing wrong, and maybe that starts to change everything, instead of do what you are doing plus something new. Because sometimes we think in that cumulative way, okay, so far I'm doing this, so what's the new thing to acquire extra to make the difference? And sometimes it's nothing. You have to unlearn, which doesn't sound too glorious for the ego. No? Sometimes that's also, the ego wants always to feel I'm acquiring, no? I'm getting more. If I have to unlearn, it seems like being defeated. No? It doesn't seem too glorious. Unconsciously, that may happen also, and we need to enter into that space sometimes. One thing also, maybe this is one example, because sometimes devotees also can get very much very much attached to feeling things. Like, I'm chanting and I'm already having an idea what should I be feeling. And sometimes there's lots of, in some cases, I'm just analyzing different scenarios. In many cases, I've seen devotees getting so discouraged because they are expecting to have certain experiences which do not correspond with their stage they're in. But they read the life of whatever, Raghunath Das Goswami or this, and they're like, wow, this is what is supposed to be happening, but it's not happening. And they compare. No, comparison is formula for misery. No? And they are expecting to have the type of ecstasy that you will have in Bhava Bhakti while you have not reached Nishta yet. So something that helps sometimes is to study the symptoms of every stage to normalize where you are and sometimes not stigmatize your lack of experience. Because, again, some experiences will come, but not probably in the stage you are. And second, chanting the name, maybe this can be shocking, and that's part of the idea, of course. Chanting is not about feeling yourself something. Ultimately, we chant to make Radha and Krishna feel something. That's real chanting. I'm not chanting to feel things, because if not, I'm making the name a servant of what I want to experience. Ideally, I'm chanting to make them feel something, to give them pleasure with my attitude, with my openness. So sometimes I'm too much, again, attached or expecting, okay, something's coming, nothing coming, nothing coming, nothing coming. And the very fact that I'm so expectant on that makes the whole project a failure. And when I start to forget about something's coming, and I start to concentrate about Hare Krishna is Radha and Krishna, non different from the divine couple. I try to chant for their pleasure. I have talked with many devotees making this point, and I can tell you many devotees who say, "Oh, I never heard that. I'll try to chant from that place." And they have told me my chanting went up like nothing. Because, yeah, I left all my personal expectations and I just tried to offer myself for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna, which is what's all about, right? Ultimately. It's simple. I'm not giving you anything very complicated, but it's just like a shift in the orientation. And maybe we'll realize, oh my gosh, yeah, my whole chanting was always centered on me. And Radha and Krishna were just the servants and providers of emotion, providers of ecstasy, providers of what I want to feel, what I need to feel. And I'm not thinking about making them feel anything. There's no reciprocity. It's just them. I'm not feeling anything. Nothing's going on. Of course, nothing's going on because you are chanting from the wrong place. Because chanting is not about you feeling things. Like this famous example of I'm not with this denying all experience. Now try to understand. I'm not saying, so therefore you shouldn't feel anything. But I'm saying when you start to concern about making Krishna happy, you will start to feel lots of interesting things. Those are the things we want to feel. Like one quote that I put in Radical Personalism is, it's not so much that we want to serve so we can feel something. We want to feel something so we can serve. Just to play a exchange of words, but and this famous story of this disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who came like Dina Dayal to him and said, Gurudev, I'm chanting for the last 20, 30 years and I'm not feeling anything. You say basically that. And Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's reply was like, okay, perfect, continue. Like implying, who say it was about you feeling things? That was the implication. Like, great, you're doing fine. It's not about you feeling things. It's about them feeling things. So keep chanting.
But doesn't it go together? Like, I mean, immediately you will feel things. If they feel things.
Yeah.
Because
again, that's what I say. It's not that I'm saying you will never feel anything, but I'm saying if you want to feel something in the way that we want to feel something in the boat, as the boat is, this has to be in place first. No?
Because it seems that Krishna is, I mean, at least from my experience, that he's just answering when there is heart. When it's coming from the heart.
Yeah.
He never answers when it's not coming from the heart. And
I mean, he's always answering, but when we are not in the heart, we are not hearing it.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? It's not
by not appearing also.
Mm-hmm.
That's the answer.
Yeah, like I sometimes like to say, no, I mean, Krishna is always giving mercy. He's an ocean of mercy. He's made of mercy. So it's not like, okay, I have to ask mercy because if I don't ask mercy, mercy is not coming. Mercy is coming. But if I'm not entering into a mood of prayer, I may not perceive the mercy. That's it. It's not that there's no mercy unless I ask Krishna for mercy. He cannot but give mercy. So yeah, I will say that, no? We have to to understand basically what's the basic definition of bhakti. You are all Bhakti Shastris here. You learn that verse. So we have to approach. It's like even other relationship. No, I will say let's stop. Let's put Krishna there waiting for a moment. With all respect, some relationship, human relationship with your wife, with your brother, with your friends. If I'm just conceive my relationship purely in terms of I want you to make me feel things, you will be miserable. Right?
My wife is always.
I will ask.
She responds immediately.
Yes.
Very dynamic.
Yes.
Very...
So the disc appears. Chakra, invoke chakra. Sorry, we are defaming Anupam. But that's the point. If you think in any relationship, you just like center the relationship about you feeling something, it doesn't work. But the moment you start to be in a healthy way concerned about the person, lovingly, openly, that's worlds apart. That's a completely different thing. So just apply the same pattern, so to say, to our relationship with God. It's also a relationship. So it's not just like an automatic mechanism and not like I have to endeavor and the ecstasy has to come. Again, it's a relationship.
Well, since you said it so nicely that, I mean, that actually practice that is meant to be selfless, bringing us out of the center, we are keeping us in the center at the same time. So it actually cannot, we are doing contradictory things.
Yeah.
One thing that came to my mind is that Krishna says, I mean, in scriptures and Shastra, how to get somewhere, anywhere, Krishna, by a strong desire, no? And maybe I just wrote, it's not the practice itself that will bring us somewhere. The practice itself will not bring us somewhere, but the desire to get there. And unless we think that our practice is actually a space where our desires should amplify, rather than we hang on just the practice itself to get us there. So we need to kind of like take the responsibility for the desire itself to be increased, rather than technical performance of the practice. Yeah.
So I like to use this word. You use the word performance. And is our bhakti performative or transformative? To make a play of words. We are longing for transformation, for these experiences, but sometimes we are addressing the practice in a performative way. So we cannot expect transformation if we are being performative. If we are approaching the practice with this like formulaic idea, like, okay, I will do this. It's not mechanical. Again, Krishna is not a calculator. Krishna is a person. No? And as you say, desire is the main thing. Bhava Grahi Janardana. Krishna takes the essence of our inner mood. He doesn't care for what you are doing externally. Sorry if this sounds shocking. He doesn't care if you chanted 16 rounds or not. He cares for what's going on inside of your chanting. I can chant 16 rounds of Nama Parad one after another. I'm not capturing Krishna's heart with that. No? But if I chant half a syllable of Shuddhanam, Krishna is absolutely captured. I'm not saying this to break your commitments. I'm just saying we should be very careful not to get over attached to the external performance. It's not that I will show at the end of my life a list of numbers to Krishna. 16 per 30 every year, per 365 per Golok, right? And Krishna is, where was your heart? Where was your desire? In your words, Gaur Govinda, right? Where was your desire? Actually, our own practice not only should amplify our desire, we should engage in practice out of desire, ideally. What should take me to practice should be desire, no? Some healthy longing, not imitational, not forced, but no? Even when I don't have that longing, I can have a longing, especially because I don't have that longing. There's always a place for entering to a space of healthy longing, no? Of desire. Yes.
I just wanted to kind of underscore what Dina Dayal have said, and because it feels, I mean, I could really feel the sincerity that you were saying, and it really touched me, because
you are my Krishna.
Because I'm sorry, but I'm not.
It's beginning. You start to have an experience.
But, I really feel
Krishna comes for other people also.
Exactly.
all this what you have said, okay, I should re-examine my sambandha, I should try this, I should do more with the heart, I should try to develop my desire, I should try.
I'm not using so much I should.
Yeah,
Be careful with that.
That's what it is, right? If I wanna try, if I wanna make my chanting, right? There's so many things I can do, and I heard so much of the things that I could do, and well, you know, I've tried so much, and especially someone who has been chanting 30, 40, you know, so many years, I'm sure that they have tried all these things that, that you now suggest, and we hear so much, and still you feel it hasn't happened. And then I feel, I feel like, what is there, it seems like I've done so much. And then I think sometimes maybe it's not about, not about me trying so much. Maybe it's about just realizing that it's not up to me at all. That is just, as Maharaj had on this kirtan, holy name immersion, when he was pouring that water and was showing what the purification, how the name works. Like you have to expose yourself and just pouring, and then it purifies. And it's just that. In the end, it's not up to me in the end.
Yes, sometimes we say that idea that we have to make an effort to realize how needy we are for grace. Because sometimes this question comes, what's the relationship between grace and personal effort? Because sometimes we put so much upon our own endeavor, and generally we as Rumi said, I read recently, he will say we need more grace than what we think. No, so but we need more grace than what we may think. But sometimes we resort more to our own endeavor. So there is some endeavor, but part of the endeavor is, as you say, realizing my own limits, realizing from here onward it's not up to me. You need to make an endeavor to reach that point. No, it's like exhausting my capacities and then knowing that from this up, I cannot do it. No? But you have to experience it, because you may in theory know, yeah, Krishna, give me mercy. But sometimes we say that from a place where we still trust so much our own capacities. Sometimes we need to exhaust those capacities and be humbled enough to acknowledge the need for grace. And that's why, no wonder, the main instruction that Mahaprabhu gives for chanting, it begins with humility. No? Trinadapi Sunichena, no? Which in part has to do with reach that point of humility where you realize, as you say, it's not up to me. No, it's not that I'm escaping responsibility. I'm trying to do my best, but also I have a limit, and surrender and open. And that's humility. And Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami makes that point in Chaitanya Charitamrita. If you chant the name entering into this verse, into this space of humility and so on, you can attain the goal. If you chant without endeavoring to enter that space, you can chant for millions of lifetimes, and it's not happening. So he's making that point also. It's possible that you can just chant without reaching these places of humility and openness, and it's not happening lifetime after lifetime. But if you enter that space, it happens. No? So yeah, that will be a way. Bhakti Rasa, yes.
When you were speaking, I just saw the image of Draupadi in the assembly holding.
Disrobed.
Sorry, yeah. So that that's her chanting her round, coming to terms with the fact that
Yeah, because as we know, first Draupadi raised one hand calling for Krishna, but with the other hand she was still holding. My endeavor, it's up to me. And at one point, it's not up to me. And when she did that, Krishna appeared as Sari personified. But she needed to go through a certain situation where she really was confronted with, it's not up to you anymore. So, and on a daily basis, that's happening always, but sometimes we do not realize that. So we need to go into those places. And chanting and prayer has a lot to do with that, to go to those places of as Richard Rohr will say, that I like a lot, he says prayer, which goes hand in hand with chanting in one sense, he will say prayer is a training in dying. Because reaching those points of it's not up to me, it's a death to a blow to the false ego. It's not up to me. It's not up to me again. It's not up to me again. I give up, I let go, I surrender. Death after death after, that's a training in dying, no? Dying to live, of course, right? Dying before dying, as we were thinking to talk. Sorry, you were raising your hand half an hour ago.
I would like to share some experience I have regarding, quite connected with what Dinada is going through. Like in my spiritual life, I had different time and experience, and some was quite, I would say, intense. And I remember a certain time in my devotional life when somehow I can't chant. And the first time it's happened was in a temple. I was serving in a small temple. Swami asked me to come and cook for the deities, and I was cooking the 6th offering every day, 7-day week, for a month and a half. So then all the things that goes on in your life, you know, you have to sleep a little bit, you have to take 9 showers a day, because at that time was the basic things I have to do.
9 showers.
Yeah, I was cooking for the deities.
Wow, that's a Guinness record.
Yeah, but it takes time. And,
of course.
Some eating takes time, and you have to find. I was sleeping from 9 to 3, and try to find some space for japa. But you know, first 2 weeks it was okay, but after some weeks, you know, you need to rest a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was on and on and on and on. And in one point, I realized, you know, I can't chant 16 rounds. You know, maybe 3, 4 hours. You know, and sometimes I need some break because you know. Not to get crazy, you know? And so this was my first experience on not really chanting, but it was not from my own decision. I was asked by senior devotee to go there and to do that, and I see Krishna was putting me in such a situation. Then some years later, some who know me, they know that I have a business, I'm producing prasadam and I'm selling prasadam to shops, etc. And some years was more peaceful than others, but some years was just like overwhelming and a lot of things to do and can't find help. And in one point, we moved with my wife from where we were to another place, and I have to build up the workshop to build basically Krishna's kitchen. And for 4 months and a half, I was working in construction, keeping the business running, cooking the prasadam, selling the prasadam, and again, a long period of time I wasn't chanting. And at this time I have a very, I would say, interesting experience, because I realized that I was with no association, waking up every day at 7 o'clock, going for construction, coming back at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, running the business, doing the thing I can do in the weekend, etc. But no space to chant, because construction is also demanding and you need to rest. And I was with no association. I was building with people really far from any idea of Krishna consciousness. So the mood, the space, and everything was like we could say with our way to speak, really tamasic, in a way, and intense and heavy. But somehow I have an experience that after some days and weeks, I realized that I was basically always chanting in my mind. Each time my mind wasn't busy talking to someone or focusing on something that, you know, I needed. The mantra was coming all the time. And I was like surprised, you know, and it was on and on and on for months like this. And in one point, everything finished. Then life take another rhythm, then some chanting come back and try to keep the sadhana, sometimes easier, sometimes more difficult, and up and down. And in one point, I approached Nityananda Swami to speak about this, because I was not wishing to just stay on my own and say, yeah, it's okay, Krishna, you know, it's fine, it was fine. I was not chanting and saying it was nice, and Krishna was here. So I talked with him, the answer he gave to me was really nice. It was very simple, but because I know Maharaj for some time, and very often I serve him, and know our situation. Sukumarish is disciple of him. And he told me actually Krishna is not born to reveal himself to someone who chants 16 rounds. And for me, this being a big switch in my mind. Like Krishna, for me, the realization I had that Krishna is really kind. Because from one side, I was getting all those teaching, instruction, and it's a big part of our, practice, the movement, the chanting of 16 rounds. This is like the main, is very much emphasized. And I understand why, and it's very important, and I don't want to go against or whatsoever, but I just revealing my experience. And but beside this, what I realize is that what's really important to Krishna, it seems that is the intention we have in anything we do, the chanting, but even other things we do, because I was building a workshop, a kitchen to keep distributing prasadam. So in the temple, I was cooking for him, and in some other ways, sometimes you have things to do that takes time and space, but it seems to me that everything should be done in the same mood, like the chanting. And this for me was a really key point, is that not about the number, it's not about the, and in Kirtan is the same, it's just what you want to do. And still sometimes, even now, I have my up and down regarding my sadhana and my practice. But now I would say I'm quite okay with it, because I know that it will not be like this all the time. And I'm convinced in the future I will get some more space, some more time, and life will change again. But I really, for me, it was really nice what Krishna showed me, is that don't worry too much. Don't put more stress than it's required. And I taking care. This was really what I really get in those situations now. And like you was mentioning about humility. In one way, I would speak for myself, but I see where I am, regarding practice, regarding devotional service, and many years ago, where I was thinking that where I should go, and it's true, it's really far. I mean, it's really a big way to go, but it's like, and now I'm feeling that, I don't know, it doesn't matter so much for Krishna. All those things. It's really what the intention we put in the things we do. So
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Two things, if I can share regarding what you mentioned. Last thing you mentioned that I appreciate, of course, a lot is the point that sometimes also we practice a lot with goal. We were talking the other day with Ramhari, like goal oriented. So I'm here and I should be there, and I have to endeavor to reach there, and to instead of practicing instead of goal oriented, being presence oriented. Like how much present I am now, whether chanting, whether working, whether instead of I'm here and I should be there and have to endeavor to what's my inner orientation, how I'm conceiving my life and my practice, like goal oriented or presence oriented. Because when we, at least for me, that helped a lot when I shifted to presence oriented, whether in chanting or anything. Because Krishna is already here. In one sense, everything that I need is already here. But again, the problem is that generally I'm not here. Generally, I'm like, and so much is coming here, but we are not here. We are goal-oriented, future-oriented. And in that connection, as you were mentioning, not only chanting, but how you do anything and everything, you can even define chanting in a broader way to encompass whatever you do, anything on a daily basis, because what's chanting the name of Krishna? Means Krishna is not different from his name. And chanting is developing my relationship with Krishna, basically. But Krishna, developing my relationship with Krishna is chanting the name of Krishna. Do you agree with me on that one? Because Krishna and the name is not different. So I'm chanting the name of Krishna. I'm relating to Krishna in his name. But what's Krishna? Is Krishna an isolated person and everything else exists separated from him? As we talked the other day, non-dual thinking? No. Everything exists in connection to Krishna. So developing my relationship with Krishna shouldn't be something separate from developing my relationship with everything else. So chanting the name of Krishna ultimately means, how do I relate with everything and everyone? I think that's also important to have in mind. So we don't kind of over limit chanting to, okay, the moment I'm sitting and passing my, and then something else. And I have this separatedness in my spiritual practice, my material life, my sadhana. In the beginning, I understand it's necessary to have that. But at one point, my sadhana becomes everything. Everything I do in the day is my sadhana. My spiritual life and my life, they kind of merge. And everything becomes part of my practice, because my practice is to love Krishna, and to love Krishna implies loving everything else and everyone else. And I have a chance of doing that at every moment. So I think also that's important to gradually amplify the scope of my practice, and not just, okay, it's all my 2 hours sitting here and the rest of the day is who knows what. No, ideally, of course, I need those moments to just focus on that, but ideally that has to overflow in how the rest of the day unfolds as well, right? So, and sometimes we do not think like that, so that's also creates a problem in itself. We create the dichotomy. Maharaj, I have my spiritual life and I have my material life. What to do? Stop thinking like that. And make your material life your spiritual life. You don't need to separate that. So if you want to create that division, your choice, your problem. But everything can be part of the Bhakti projects of Krishna consciousness. So in the same way, chanting. Anyhow, some thoughts. We can continue. But yes.
Continuing on this, I would like to read a verse from Brahma's prayers for creative energy. So Brahma put a lot of endeavor in his prayers, and after these, the Lord responds to him. O Brahma, the prayers that you have chanted praising the glories of my transcendental activities, the penances you have undertaken to understand me, and your firm faith in me, all these are to be considered my causeless mercy. Mm-hmm. So this really shifts the table in a way. It's not that we have ever owned our practice. Mm-hmm. The Bhakti as itself being all-pervasive as the Lord is giving us this possibility to see the oneness also in our practice. I feel like, and then maybe a true humility can sprout, that we were even not the real performers of our chanting penances and all that we did, but we can just glorify Krishna while we are just doing it to give us like a front seat perspective of a devotional life. So this is a turning point in terms of that. We never actually did it at all in the first place. Our penances that we are so proud of, and grudging, why did you come or something, but you have any feedback on that?
I would think in this verse, I think it's verse 28, chapter 17 of the Gita, Asrada Yahutam Datam Tapas Taptam Kritam Chayat Asad Iti Uchate Partanachatat Pratyanoya. Whatever one does, be it sacrifice, tapasya, chanting, whatever, without faith, Krishna says it's useless. So again, the point is, you can do all the performance externally to undo, and you can become proud, but what's going on again inside? That's the active principle, no? And of course, again, he's giving, as you say, Krishna is giving mercy. Krishna is giving mercy because he's so merciful. We can practice. No, Bhakti is a gift. No, so Bhakti is not, how to say, my own creation. No, like I'm doing, as I put in my first book. There's a place to even say it, not to say I'm doing Bhakti, but I'm being done by Bhakti. No? Instead of taking a more subjective position, I am the doer. Kartahamiti manjate. I'm being done by. And I just don't have to put too much opposition. Sometimes
maybe celebrate while it's happening.
Yeah, of course. We have to celebrate. But yeah, once Srila Sridhar Maharaj said that, he said, Krishna is wanting to give us a great gift, the most valuable gift, and the only thing he's asking for us is to some collaboration to accept the gift. No, like if I want to give you the most valuable thing, can you put your hand? That's it. You have to do it. Nobody else can do it, but the other person is bringing the whole. Don't pay opposition to the gift. Just extend the hand. No, it sounds little, but sometimes for us it may feel a lot in our practice. Interestingly, not to feel bad about ourselves. Mahaprabhu himself is saying that in the second verse of Shikshastakam, of course. No? So that offers some. When he glorifies the name and the qualities and everything, and they say Durdaiva Nidrisham Mihajjanina Nura. He contrasts that and say, but I have no attraction yet. So he expresses some humility. In the third verse, we have the humility Trinada Pisunichena, but in the second verse, there is another humility that we need to have in contrasting the glories of the name, our present lack of attraction probably, but if that's coming from a humble place, that humility will foster. In itself, it's an experience. Like sometimes I joke with devotees to Maharaj, I don't feel anything when chanting. I say, oh, you feel that you don't feel anything. You're already feeling something. Right? Right. So if I don't feel anything, like this is a famous, maybe you know this quote from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, no? He will say, okay, when we chant the name of Krishna, it's like crying for Krishna. Crying. And someone asked, like, no, one hand raising there, probably representing everyone else. And what if I'm not crying? Well, what if I cannot cry? I cannot just like push the tears and force it. So what if crying is not happening? And he said, well, then you should cry because you cannot cry. And not in an external imitational way, but I know that ideally, and not to create neurosis and dysfunctional people in the name of crying for Krishna. But okay, I know the ideal result of chanting will be all that. I feel that it's not happening. So there can be healthy assessment of the situation that will create some feelings. Something will happen. I may not be feeling ecstasy. I may feel in repentance. I may feel in humility, like Mahaprabhu shows in the second verse. But that's maybe the corresponding feeling that I need to have in that stage. Although it may not be the most glorious, the ultimate ecstasy, that's what I need to feel in order to experience whatever needs to be experienced at the end. But again, remember that it's not about us just feeling things. No, I think it's an important point also. Feelings will come, but also when we are also concerned about providing an experience to others as well. You're raising your hand, back, Teresa?
Yeah, that reminds me of when you were speaking about the definition of sadhu being thoroughly honest.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are thoroughly honest, then where we are, then that's when that's what Krishna appreciates.
Yeah.
Is a person that's thoroughly honest.
Yeah.
And it also ties in with presence and what Martina was saying about, being in the heart, and how you said that Krishna is always there, but it's not until we are present in the heart that we can experience that he's actually there.
Mm-hmm.
All the time.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. In practical terms, at least what helps me, and I'm not saying I'm a perfect example of what we're talking about here, but what I can notice it helps me about, apart from things we've talked about, is specifically in the moment of sitting and chanting, let's put it that way, being very careful not to start in autopilot, right? Just not because it can be without any feeling. Again, it can be just from the head, it can be just from who knows where. So first trying to bring presence to the moment, like where I am, where I am. bring presence, and sankalpa also, like why I'm doing this, why I want to do that, why I choose to do. Who is this? Like spending some moment with me and with what I'm about to do. That in itself sets the mood and the stage for something more focused than just like. I think we all know, we all have experience of that. And of course, it doesn't mean that on the way we may not get lost again, and the main mind is not going shopping here and there. But setting that foundation can help to return, take time. And again, it's not like a rush. Like even we were talking with some devotee recently, and she was telling me that the fact that she felt this pressure feeling of finishing the 16 rounds were really affecting the quality of her chanting. And almost again, she didn't have time, 3 kids, life dynamics, life happens. Like this this disciple of Prabhupada, who was I'm going to the story back 1 minute. She was pregnant. She had a baby, a few days ago, and she was again disbrocked, crying, and Prabhupada said, "What's going on?" "I'm not able to finish my 16 rounds, Prabhupada." And Prabhupada said, but you just had a baby, right? And she said, "Yes." "Oh, here's your rounds." No. Common sense. Uncommon sense. No, uncommon sense. Not so common sometimes. No? So my point, going back to this, we were talking, and she was like so much into reaching the number that she really felt is putting me in anxiety, pressure, I'm absent. And I gave her a very heretic advice, which was chant less. Chant less, because you don't have time to finish that, and focus on that number that you can sustain, and quality and presence. And she told me, wow. First, she was shocked, of course, because she chanted 16 without fail for decades. So just hearing about the possibility of not reaching that number was kind of bordering hell. But somehow she took the quantum leap, because it was unsustainable for her. And she was realizing in her honesty, it's not working. I mean, I'm checking the box, 16, 16, 16, but the more I check the box, the worse quality I'm finding, and I'm out of balance. And she started to chant 8. And she told me, "Maharaj, I haven't chanted such good rounds for decades." Again, I'm not saying with this, the formula is chant less. I'm not saying that, but you get my point, huh? So we have to see what in our particular situation needs adjustment in one way or another, and take time to adjust, because again, it's a relationship. So in any relationship, we need so many times we need to recalculating. Where's our relationship going? Is this going anywhere? We are just in autopilot and expecting magic. We need to have a deep conversation. We need to change. We need to hear each other. We need to unlearn. It's a relationship. So where is my relationship with Krishna now, with the name? And not to get neurotic or discouraged, just to, like any relationship, okay, let's rediscover the relationship. But for that, we may need to. Krishna is willing to adjust. He's very flexible, as you can imagine. So we have to also put our part of that. That's the flexibility that Mahaprabhu is asking. Trinadavisunijan. He says humility, but what humility is? Be more humble than the blade of grass. What's the blade of grass? Something that bends without breaking. It's flexible. That's the imaginary he's using. Like a blade of grass, bend without breaking. In other words, adjust, be flexible, remain in a liquid space, like flow. We were talking before. That allows for the relationship. Krishna is flexible. Krishna is that type of person. We need to become that type of person to relate with him. Yeah. And it's difficult and it's hard and we fail miserably, but at the same time it's glorious, because all that is happening in the concept of bhakti. So even our greatest frustration and all that stuff still is happening in a certain blessed perimeter, which is bhakti came to our lives, and so many blessings are there. So we should also keep that in mind. That's why Mahaprabhu in this second verse where he laments, Durdaiva Midrisham Mihajini Nanurag, I have no attachment for them. That's the last line, one line. First 3 lines, all appreciation and celebration of the name. Nam Namakari Bahut, so many names, all Shaktis are there, no hard or fast rules, and your generosity is. So first he has these 3 lines, 75% of deep appreciation and celebration for the gifts. And okay, I'm lamenting in the context of that. Because if you miss that positive content, you just like lament unnecessarily. As Prabhupada will say, don't lament for that which is not worthy of lamentation. So we have to. Okay, we are almost 2 hours. Today the theme was, not only the name, but yeah, it's so central for us. So it's good that we have these conversations, even if we still need to continue thinking and talking. But yeah, rediscovering the relationship. How willing am I to rediscover a relationship? Like again, if you are married with someone for 30 years, you may need to rediscover the relationship, not to end in divorce or not to end in each one in the room just without talking to each other. And it's hard work. It's not just like, which button do I have to press so it happens? Sorry, there's no keyword here, no button. It's a beautiful, if we understand, it's a glorious, beautiful investment. So, okay, we can conclude here, but we can end with a brief kirtan. So we try to apply all that we've spoken in the last hour, somehow or other, trying to pour our hearts, be present, chant for the pleasure of the name, whatever you touched you most. Let's give ourselves the chance for a few minutes to open for that experience. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Krishna Balaram ki jai, Sachinandan Gaur ki jai, Gaur Bhaktavind ki jai, Gaur Premanand. Of course, today is the last gathering, so also deep gratitude to Dinadayal Prabhu, Anupam, Ramani, all of you also for coming. It has been great happiness and joy to get to know all of you and learn a lot also. I'm not coming here just to teach people. I'm coming, this guy's mission is to get mercy from all of you and to learn. So thank you so much for that. It has been moving.
Thank you for coming and to Bhakti Ras, being with you. It is a great week. We appreciate it. And
yes, thank you. So, Harinam Prabhu ki jai.